All right, welcome to today's session. Okay, so we've got two sessions. This one is going to be on small group and discipleship. So, some of you were here yesterday and can help with this discussion. Some of you were not here yesterday, and I would actually like to hear what y'all have to say as well. I want to hear from y'all what you think, not the differences, but maybe what defines a small group versus what defines discipleship. Dom.
Small group, it tends to be like a bigger group of people than discipleship.
Yeah.
And it tends to be like more general than discipleship. Discipleship is more singular person based, if you want to call it that.
So like one-on-one, one-on-two maybe even. This is more generalized. Yeah, those are great. Who else? Yeah, Zach.
Pretty much like anyone can go to a small group.
Yeah.
But discipleship is kind of like a few people that can go. Well, like not a few people that can go, but like it's not going to be.
It's not open to everyone,
Yeah.
so maybe it's like a special group of people. Good. What else? The differences between small group and discipleship.
Discipleship has intent.
Zach?
I was going to say that you have more in-depth conversations in discipleship.
John?
Small groups tend to not have like as more goals, I think it is. Like discipleship, you see goals for people.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So it kind of still fits in with that generalized idea. Where discipleship may have individualized goals for people. Becca, did you have your hand up?
I did not.
Okay,
But I can
great.
come up with something.
No, it's okay. I just thought I saw it up and then down. All right, what else? Differences between small group and discipleship. Yeah.
Discipleship requires like genuine, deep trust and connection.
Mm-hmm. Good. Josh?
For small groups, does anyone or does that cross gender lines, or is that still?
It depends. In a student setting, I would say small groups are typically gender specific. For adults, we have things like life group, which would be you can cross lines and you can cross seasons of life. So like I could be, as a single female, could be in a small group with married couples, and that's okay. For adults, kids, like students can also be, crossed, but we don't do that quite as much just because we already struggle like on a maturity level with what to share and how to share and who to share with, and so when we mix genders, it can kind of get a little bit even more complicated. And small groups are a really good place to start learning where and how to share parts of your story and who to share those with appropriately. And so, yeah, that's a great question though. So some of you guys that are in small groups, what would you say is different about your small group versus, Jacob? What would you say is unique to your small group that may not fall under the category of discipleship, Dom?
It tends to be more like lax and like maybe like not punishment really, but like how the conversation is going.
Yeah, more relaxed setting. You were going to say the same thing? Yeah, I think that's a great distinction between the two. Other distinctions between small groups and discipleship. Yeah, Kendall.
Kind of like what you said about being in a season of life, but with like discipleship, you have to be on a specific like spiritual level.
That's a really, really good indication.
But with small group, it just you don't really like it. Everyone differs.
I don't know how to say that because it's important in both, but I think is
It might be more like
matters more.
I think with small group, you're in a small group, but discipleship, you don't always know that you're being discipled.
So what what's a good word for that? That's a small group is you know. You may know less. Yeah, you may know less that you're in a discipleship relationship. It's a little bit, yeah.
This might not sound right, but like it's like discipleship kind of sounds like it's more like, I don't know if like it's the right word, but holy almost, because like disciple.
Yeah, no, I
is
think that's
like
a great word for it.
Jesus and everything.
Yeah, I think small groups can be holy, but I do think that there's something really, really special about a discipleship relationship. I think organic is a good word for like, it kind of grows out of an organic relationship already that you had. Who had their hand up? You.
One of y'all said yesterday it's you play, eat.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the rest.
Eat, play, learn, pray. Eat, play, learn, play. Yeah, these 4 elements are really important in small groups. You're going to do some of those in discipleship. And in a discipleship relationship, all of those may happen in different moments on different days where this has more of a structure to it. And this can too. Discipleship can also have a structure, and we'll get into some of that too. But yeah, this is great. I think this is a really good list of the differences between small groups and discipleship groups. I think that some of the most important ones for us in this training is you'll hear me refer to small groups, and the things I want you to remember are that anyone can be in a small group. So we encourage everyone at youth group to be in a small group. It's a place that's a little bit more relaxed. Spiritual maturity is important, but not as important. And so it's an opportunity to kind of just dig in, get a little bit deeper, take one more step past youth group into a small group. Discipleship is a lot more intentional. The individuals are selected typically in a discipleship relationship, even if it is an organic selection. And by organic, I mean a natural friendship. So there often is an intentional conversation at some point, but it's a little bit more natural. And there is something just really holy about it. I think Jesus, with his disciples, he has 12 disciples, right? So he's got a small group of disciples. They're really important. They're really intentional together. They do ministry together. They live life together. But Peter has 2 or 3 men that he's extra close to that are his favorite disciples. So John was a disciple in a discipleship relationship with Jesus. They all were. They're all disciples of Jesus. But, did I say something wrong?
Yeah, you said Peter.
Oh, sorry, guys. Jesus. Did I say Peter?
Yeah.
I don't even know where that came from. Sorry, guys. Jesus had 12 disciples, but Jesus also had a couple of guys that he was extra close to. He spent more time with them. They went with him kind of everywhere he went, where some of the other disciples maybe didn't go every single place that he went every single day. And so there is a distinction. Jesus makes a distinction, and we make a distinction here. We are going to talk about small groups first, because that's what most of you guys will be doing this summer, and then we'll go into discipleship, because I think that's really important, especially for students who are going to be entering into discipleship relationships with adults, and who ultimately we hope will be starting discipleship relationships with younger students in the next few years, and once, in high school, college age. So, small groups. Y'all heard it yesterday. 4 of the most important things in small groups, the 4 things that we do every single small group, is we eat together, we play together, we learn together, and then we pray. That says play twice. Pray together. So, eating just kind of puts us all on the same page, right? We all level playing field when there's food. Yeah, I mean, we all love food, and food, having your hands busy, helps people talk. I'm a lot more likely to tell you something when I'm sitting around a table with you. I'm a lot more likely to have a conversation with you if I'm sitting around a table with you than if I'm sitting in a chair in a room waiting for someone else to say something, right? Like even you guys probably will, I think that y'all can agree, even our conversations over the gospel waltz today, or yesterday, it's a lot different having that discussion if we were sitting around a table and some questions started getting brought up, right? I don't know why, but there's just something about eating around a table. It's a thing that they do in Scripture. It's a thing that we do in real life, or that was real life too. But sorry. So eating together is really important. We love food. Kids love food. We want to feed people. And then we want to play. So eating is probably about 15% of our time together, give or take. So if I've got an hour and a half worth of time, I'm probably going to spend 15 to 20 minutes eating. We're just going to eat. It breaks the ice, right? We can ask a funny question. We can talk about, oh, would you rather? We can do whatever we want. We're going to eat. We're just going to chill. We're going to hang. We're going to talk about nothing important. I mean, you can talk about important stuff if it comes up naturally, but this is not necessarily the time that we would spend asking really intentional, hard questions. This is a time where we want to do some icebreakers, get people to open up. Icebreakers are really fun because it gets people talking, laughing, creates some inside jokes, and then you start to trust each other more. And then we're going to play. We're going to play next. And playing and eating, it all overlaps. All of this overlaps at some point. So it's not like, okay, it's been 21 minutes. We have to play now. We're done eating. We have to play. That's not how, please do not do that. Please, that's a nightmare. But we want to play for probably close to 30 to 40% of our time. So if we've got an hour and a half, we want to play for probably 30 of those minutes, 25 to 30 of those minutes. And we want to play board games. We want to play basketball. We want to play whatever that ball game is out there. Carpet ball. I'm really good at it, but I don't know the name of it. We want to play carpet ball. We want to play some silly card game. We want to play some weird cup game about Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I don't remember. You'll have to bring that back because I don't remember it.
Every day.
I don't remember how to play it, but we'll have to play that. You're welcome. You're welcome. You can literally do anything. This is a fun time too. Eating and playing is a fun time for groups to overlap. So like if there's all the middle schoolers are here and one middle schooler wants to play basketball and she's a girl and the boys are playing basketball, it's okay for her to play basketball in that moment. We're all kind of overlapping. We're all playing together. If she wants to play a board game with her small group, then that's also awesome. But we're playing. Then we're going to learn. So in a small group, there's typically a curriculum. There's typically something that we're studying together, whether it's a book of the Bible, whether it's a Bible study book that we chose. If we are leading a small group, we as the staff would typically pick that out or approve what you're doing. So if you've got a Joel Osteen Live Your Best Life Now book, we're probably not going to approve that. Please don't pick that. I'm sure it's helpful in some way, but it's probably not what we're going to encourage. So for learning, that is the curriculum. That's the stuff that we have planned on. Here, some places are very strict about it. Here, we are pretty lenient about learning. We want them to learn, but there are some weeks where learning means learning about each other. So I might have a curriculum and it might be like, oh, it's John 3. We got to get through John 3 today. And you have just had the crappiest week in your entire life. Your parents decided to split up. Your dog died. You had a wreck. I mean, like, you had broccoli for dinner last night. I mean, like, really bad, horrible week. Horrible week. The last thing that you're going to be able to do is you might be able to talk about John 3, but you also probably need to spend some time talking to your small group about what's going on in your life and for your leaders and for your people to encourage you and to talk through it with you. So that's part of the learning thing. We're learning about each other and we're learning about Jesus. So that's going to be another 30 minutes or so. I don't know how many minutes we've spent so far. 20, 30, that's an hour and 20 minutes. We've got about 10, 15 minutes left. And so we're going to play, or we're going to pray. God, guys, I just really like playing. We're going to pray. Sorry. And we're going to pray together. So you guys know, we love praying together. It is not typically a thing that we do. We're like, all right, I'm going to pray us out. We're going to go. It's going to be a 30-second thing. We really like to take prayer requests. We really like to pray together. We really like to pray for one another. I would much rather Jacob pray for Dom than me pray for Dom. I love praying for Dom, and I'm happy to pray for Dom, but I also want for Dom to hear his friends praying for him. And when you pray out loud with your friends, it helps you love them more. So that's what a small group kind of looks like. It's pretty relaxed. We've got some things that we want to cover. We've typically got some sort of curriculum that's been approved. We've got elements of eating and playing. We're always praying for one another, and it is a larger setting. So you might have a small group that has 14 people in it. That's a big small group, but that's okay. A small group is also kind of the first thing that we would encourage someone to do after they come to youth group. So if youth group is the first encounter of the gospel, which often here in Citrus County it is, maybe not everywhere, but in Citrus County it is, then the next thing that we want you to do is get involved in a small group. We want to encourage people. So as leadership, you students, it's really important to encourage people to be part of a small group because it helps them get plugged in more. It helps them get to know each other better. Helps them to get to know some adult leaders better. And then it makes you own the cause a little bit more. We want to own student ministry as students. So, small groups are awesome. They're really important. This is where 90% of people, if they get plugged in past youth group, this is where they're going to get plugged into. We want people in small groups. We want small group leaders. We want small groups. We want it to feel like family. We want you to be growing in this kind of setting. So then we're going to move to discipleship. Discipleship is more in depth. Essentially, that's what it is. It's a more in-depth relationship with someone who is farther along in their faith than you are. So if Jean was if she had been a believer for longer than me and she had been really digging in and really practicing her faith longer than me, it doesn't actually matter that she's younger than me. Obviously, there's some differences in stages of life that are pretty significant between Jean and I, but if I met someone who was 25 and she was kind of in a similar stage of life and had knew more about Jesus, knew Jesus better than I do, it's cool for her to disciple me. It's also cool if I know more or am older, wiser, whatever, for her to come alongside me. But in our situation, this is mostly adults discipling younger students or discipling students and college students. So for our interns, there might be some of this summer. Obviously, you only have 2 months. Discipleship, typically, we would encourage you to be in a relationship with somebody for 2 to 4 years. And then at that point, they would move on and they would start discipling someone else to multiply. That's multiplication at its best. And so obviously in a 2-month internship, it's hard to really get into a discipleship relationship, but it is possible to develop some of these deeper relationships. And in this season, some students may need just a 2-month kind of stint where they have an in-depth relationship and they're being mentored or discipled. I use the terms mentor and disciple kind of interchangeably. I don't know that they always should be, but for me, they just end up being a little bit interchangeable. So ignore me if I say mentor. It's all, in my head, it's all the same thing for this discussion. So here's the thing about discipleship. Disciples are chosen. Jesus did not send an open invitation. He did not put posters at the Sea of Galilee that said looking for disciples, right? No, he did not. If he had, there would have been some kooky people signing up to be disciples, I'm guessing. But Jesus chose disciples. He chose 12 men that were going to walk alongside him for the course of his ministry. And so that's what we do. With discipleship, we choose who we are going to disciple. So it does not make sense for me to disciple someone who I don't know, who I've never met, Jesus did that, but he was all-knowing, so he knew he was choosing. For us humans, for me being 100% human, it doesn't make sense for me to maybe disciple somebody who I don't jive with at all. We have totally different beliefs about everything. We have totally different tastes in music. We have totally different... we can have different tastes in music, that's fine. But if we have nothing in common, it makes no sense for me to disciple them, right? Oh, it's just Jason. Welcome to the party, Jason. So disciples are chosen first. When you're choosing a disciple, there are a couple of things. First, compatibility is really important. You want to choose someone who is compatible with you. So if you're a student who's going to be discipled by an adult, it's also important that you feel compatible with that adult. Small group, that doesn't matter. Small group compatibility does not matter. If you are dedicated to learning more about Jesus, it does not matter if you like who is your small group leader. It does matter if you like the person that's discipling you, that's doing a one-on-one discipleship, because I don't really want to go to lunch with you if you don't like me. You know? There are plenty of people. We have a church that has well over, I don't know how many members, 1,000, 2,000, 10,000, I don't know how many members. There are a lot of women and men who are capable of discipling people. And so it does not have to be Sarah Harris and the girl that doesn't like Sarah Harris I don't have to disciple her. It's okay. There are plenty of people who God made to be compatible with this person. Likewise, there are lots of people, because I'm so charming and wonderful, there are lots of people who I am compatible with. I also you cannot disciple everybody that you like. So there are going to be a couple of other factors that we factor into this. But the first one is compatibility. You want to be compatible with the person that you're discipling or that is discipling you. Number 2 is intentionality. It is really important in a discipleship relationship that you be intentional. Both parties have to be intentional. I cannot disciple, and you cannot be discipled. I cannot be discipled if I cancel every week. It is a commitment. We have to be intentional with our commitment. So if I say, hey, Julia, I want to disciple you, and she's like, yeah, sounds good. I'll see you in a couple months. We can't build a relationship if I see her once every 2 months. We haven't built the level of trust that we need for her to have a conversation with me, for her to share the deepest parts of her story, and for me to talk through those with her if I haven't seen her in 2 months. We have to start all over, basically, is what it feels like. That's not totally true, but kind of. So there has to be a level of commitment and intentionality there. There's also intentionality in what we do when we're together. So if I say there's certainly a level of fun that we can have. We're gonna eat together probably. We're gonna go to Biscuit Barn. That's the greatest. Granny's is also the greatest. Those gravy biscuits, man. We're probably gonna play together some. I'm probably gonna take Kendall to Target with me at some point. We're gonna hang out at Target, right? That's fun. We don't necessarily. There might be a conversation in the car, like we talked about yesterday. There might not be a conversation in the car. I don't know, but we got an hour and a half to play. We may play together a lot. We're gonna learn together. We're gonna learn about each other. We're probably gonna talk through scripture together. There's gonna be a lot of times that we have the opportunity to say, what does Jesus say about this abuse that I've experienced? What does Jesus say about the way that my mom treated me here? What does Jesus say about the way that I should reconcile with this person? So there's going to be some learning, and we're going to pray together. We're going to pray together every time that we're together. But more than that, there's going to be some intentionality in what we do by saying, okay, once a week, you might go to Target with me every day this week, but once a week, we have a set plan. We're meeting at Thursday morning at 10 a.m. every week for the next 2 years, and we're gonna eat together because we're gonna meet at Biscuit Barn every week. But every week, we're gonna ask these few questions, and you're gonna have a few questions that maybe you talk through. If it's that the person that you are discipling has an addiction, maybe we'll talk through how that's going this week. Maybe that's a question that I'm gonna ask you every week, whether you like it or not. We're gonna have this conversation. Maybe we're gonna talk about family dynamics. If you and your mom really just clash, we're gonna talk about that every week probably. We're also gonna talk about how we're doing into being intentional outside of this relationship, reading the Word. We're going to talk about, have you been reading Scripture? We're probably going through something together, just like we are in a small group. We might be going through John together in a discipleship relationship. All right, we read John this week. Let's talk through that. There's going to be that kind of level of conversation. And then there's going to be an intentionality in our vulnerability and our honesty. So the most important thing, this is my biggest thing with discipleship, is you cannot disciple someone, and you cannot be discipled if you are not honest with the person that you're with. So it does not help for me and Jean to go to lunch and for me to be discipling Jean and for Jean to be like, yeah, everything's great. I'm good. So tell me about this. Oh yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine. I don't want to talk about it today. That doesn't help. There has to be intentionality with our vulnerability and with the way that we open up with each other. So that's kind of discipleship in a nutshell. We want to, it's really intentional. It is chosen. You choose each other for this. For interns who are discipling and for students who might be discipling in a couple of years, there might be 3 people that you connect with total. There might be 15 that you want to connect with. There are 3 that you specifically might connect with. There might only be 1 that you connect with. It just depends on the person. It depends on what's going on, who you've got around you. But this is not 15 people at a time. This might be 3 people at a time at lunch, where you've all decided that you're together gonna be honest and vulnerable with each other. Sometimes that is helpful when you've got 2 or 3 people at a table. It kind of helps bring out the vulnerability and the honesty. One thing that is important is if you're going to have more than one person, and this is something that will be modeled with Seven Rivers as a whole church, rather than just Seven Rivers as a student ministry. If you have 2 or 3 people, they probably are not choosing each other. So I'm probably not going to say, Kendall, Julia, and Jean, do you guys want to choose each other to be in a discipleship group together? As fun as that sounds, it's probably not how that's going to happen. It's probably going to be, hey, Kendall, I want to disciple you. She doesn't know who else is being chosen. She knows that me and her connect, and she's ready to say yes to this. She has essentially signed a contract saying, I will be at your house every Thursday morning at 10 a.m., and I'll be ready to do this. I will have done the work, because it's work. Discipleship is work. It's not easy. It's really hard, and it's really scary sometimes. And then I might go to Julia completely separately, and it's when Julia and Kendall maybe didn't like each other as much back in the day. And I might say, hey, Julia, we jive. We are cool. I would love to disciple you. Julia's like, yeah, man, you're so holy, Sarah. Like, I would really like it if you would disciple me. Probably not something that's ever going to come out of her mouth, but she's not going to know that I've already talked to Kendall. Kendall's not going to know that I've already talked to Julia. And she says yes. She commits to it, not caring or not knowing who else is in my group. And then I go to Jean thirdly, and I give Jean the same option. I say, Jean, I want to disciple you. And she says yes or no. Anybody has the option to say, no, I'm not in. I'm not ready for that. I'm not interested in that. That sounds too hard. That's okay. We do not, it may just be the Holy Spirit telling them that they're not ready for this. They may not be able to do the time that you can do. Like, logistically speaking, if the only time that I can do it is Thursdays at 10 o'clock at my house, and Kendall's like, yeah, I got volleyball practice every Thursday, that's okay. I would love for Kendall to not play volleyball to come be discipled by me. But the reality is, it may just be not her time. It maybe the Lord in his sovereignty knows that Kendall actually needs to be discipled by Alexis. And so Alexis is going to come to Kendall in 2 weeks or 6 months or 2 years and say, Kendall, I'd really love to disciple you. And I think the time that I would like to do it is on Tuesday nights at 5 p.m. Kendall's like, yeah, that actually works perfectly for me. That's awesome. So it's okay if people say no. It's okay if people have prior obligations. It's okay as a student to say no to a person, because if I ask Catalina and Catalina's like, yeah, you like me way more than I like you, that's okay. Catalina's allowed to say, she doesn't, she loves me, but or she doesn't, I don't know. No, Catalina is allowed to say no to me, and as an adult, as a mature adult, I can be like, all right, cool, that's okay. my identity is not whether or not Catalina wants to be discipled by me. So that's kind of the difference between the two, and that's kind of how we as student ministry are going to begin approaching the two. So up to this point, you guys are very familiar with this model. We've done a lot of this. Once we've done this enough, I think that there's opportunity. We've grown in our spiritual maturity because of all the learning that we've done here. It may be time to move into a discipleship relationship with someone. If you're a new believer, you can be in a discipleship relationship. That's okay. You don't have to necessarily be 10 years into your belief to be discipled. Some people that are new believers may not be ready for this, though. That's okay, too. So we've done a lot of this. This is kind of the direction that we're moving forward. So we're going to do some of both. We're still working out the logistics, but ultimately, in 10 years, this is what I would love for Seven Rivers model to look like, is a lot of life-on-life discipleship. This is what the church is moving toward, in a lot more in-depth kind of training that they're doing. So this is what Seven Rivers is moving toward. This is what we as a student ministry would love to move toward in the next few years. But we will start doing this summer, and we will start doing this fall as a staff. So there's a lot of, there's a difference, and it's going to take some transition, and this is not going to happen overnight. But we're really excited about what this can lead to, because I think we can all agree that a one-on-one or one-on-two or one-on-three discipleship that is very intentional and every single week, where you are intentional about what questions you're asking, and you're intentional about your compatibility, and you're intentional about a lot of things, this is going to lead to a deeper spiritual maturity and a deeper love for Jesus, I hope. And then this allows for multiplication too. So in 6 years, when Jean graduates from college and she's been discipled by somebody for 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 of those years, she's going to be ready. Or even while she's in college, she may be a junior in college and see a freshman who she's really compatible with and be ready to disciple her. And that's great. That's perfect. So that's what this does. Small groups are harder to multiply. They're a little bit less intentional. Discipleship groups multiply and make newer, deeper disciples. And that is really beautiful. So any questions about that? Who likes this better? You can be honest. Yeah, Dom, Josh, Catalina. Person. Yeah, I mean, I like this better some days, because this is really scary and really hard. Some days I like this better because I know the fruit of this, but it's really hard. Even as the person doing the discipling, I'm in one of these right now with an older woman. She is discipling, she's mentoring me. And this is really hard. There are plenty of weeks that I wake up and Rosie's like, all right, Sarah, it's Friday. It's time. And I'm like, oh, okay. I'm not really ready for it. I'm excited to see Rosie. I'm excited for Biscuit Barn or Breakfast Station or wherever we're going. I'm less excited about the questions that she's going to ask, and I'm less excited about the things that she's going to challenge me in. And so this one can be really hard and really, really scary. Yeah. Who likes this? Yeah. I think that all makes sense. It all makes sense. Yeah. Not in a bad or a good way, just it all makes sense. Okay, any questions? Yeah, Nick.
Do you can know somebody for a while to disciple them?
That is a great question. No. Should you know that you're if I've known you for a week, but we just clicked, immediately clicked, we just know we're going to be friends. You and Mikey just know you're friends. You haven't, you knew within a day probably that you loved Mikey. No, you don't have to know somebody for long. I think you want to know them for long enough to have earned their trust. This you kind of are earning your trust along the way. By the time you get to a point of discipleship, you've had a couple of conversations, and there is a lead up to this. So just as an example, if I'm going to disciple Hannah Van, if I've been praying about it, that's how this all starts, by the way, prayer for both of these. You want to pray for your small group. You want to pray over who should be in a discipleship group with you. But if I decide I want to pray, if I've been praying, and I really feel like the Lord is leading me to disciple Hannah Van, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Hannah Van and I'm going to say, Hannah, we're tight. We have a ton of fun on the soccer field. We have a ton of fun laughing about, I don't even know, everything, because we both love to laugh. We both like soccer, but we also both love Jesus. You are in a place where I feel like you are ready for a discipleship relationship. You have really shown interest in digging in. You ask a lot of really good questions. You seem like you really want to know more about who Jesus is. And as I've been praying, I just really, I feel like the Lord is leading me in your direction. I feel like I want to be a part of that with you. Hannah can be like, yeah, no, I don't want to give you the authority to do that. I don't necessarily trust you, or I don't feel like we connect like we do, like you think we do, and that's okay. But say Hannah's like, you know what, yes, we have a really tight relationship. We're super close. I love you. I've actually been thinking about how I can move forward in my relationship with Jesus, what I can do next to have a deeper relationship with Jesus. So me and Hannah have this conversation. We might sit down. I might talk to her 3 or 4 times before we ever say that this is official. It's almost like a relationship. It's almost like dating somebody. We talk, we get to know each other, we decide if we really like each other, and then we do like each other. We do want to get to know each other. We do want to be in this relationship. We want to commit to this. So we sit down and I say, okay, Hannah, that's when we have the conversation. When's best for you? When's best for me? Let's talk through time. Let's talk through whatever. I may have only known Hannah for a week, but I've earned the right to get to know her, and I've earned the right through whatever. Some people are quicker than others. I've earned the right to have authority in her life for her to tell me her story. So I think that's the most important part is, are you in a place where they trust you enough to be vulnerable with you? Sometimes the answer is yes, because you're the person who led them to Jesus, to know Jesus in the first place. That's an automatic discipleship relationship. If you've led somebody to know Jesus, it's so easy to be like, hey, let me keep following me for a couple of years. Come with me. I'm going to walk with Jesus. You walk alongside me. Let's figure this thing out together. Some people are going to be much farther along in their relationship with Jesus. And so it might be more of a, all right, here are the things that I know. Here are the things that I want to do. Here's the goal of this relationship. Are you in? And until you say yes, I'm in. Let's do this for 2 years. Anybody can back out. You can back out. They can back out. Does that make sense? So it doesn't matter how long you've known each other as much as the trust level does matter. You want to trust each other. Does that make
Is the goal in every single discipleship relationship the same?
That's a great question. Is the goal in every discipleship relationship the same? Yes and no. The goal in every discipleship relationship is for the disciple to be able to make disciples. So the goal for all of us as followers of Jesus is to make disciples. Discipleship helps get people to the point that they're ready to make disciples, if that makes sense. So if I'm discipling Hannah, my goal with Hannah is for her to be able to start discipling someone else. It's also for her to know Jesus better, for her to understand God better, for her to know Scripture better, and for her to understand what it looks like to live in community. But Hannah Van might make disciples in 2 years, where my mom might take 10 years to get to making disciples. So the goal is the same in that generally we want people to be making disciples themselves, and generally we want people to know Jesus better. The rate at which that happens is different for every single person. So even if I have 3 girls in my group, those 3 girls may even go at a different pace. So in general, yes. In reality, no. Everybody's not the same. The goal is not always the same. It's a good question. It's a really good question. What else? Any other questions? Do either of these feel impossible? No? You can say yes if one of these feels impossible. It's okay. Like, do they feel undoable? Do you feel like you could be in either one of these relationships? Even if it's hard, even if you don't want to, does it feel impossible? Good. Okay. All right. That is small group and discipleship. That was a lot of information. Very little of it is actually like, here's what you're going to do on Sundays from 5 to 7 p.m. Or whatever day of the week, Wednesdays. But this is kind of the model that we go after, and this is ultimately, no matter what time of day it happens, if you can, for small groups, follow the Eat, Play, Learn, Pray model, then we're all on the same page. And for discipleship, it takes a lot of work and training, and we'll get there. So, all right, y'all have